Let's get going. It's always in the news. Cyber criminals attacking great organizations, wreaking havoc on the trust of their brand.
We socialize cybersecurity for you to raise awareness.
Interviewing leaders who built and protect great brands.
We help talented people enter into this incredible field, and we share our research at blockbuster true cybercrime stories.
This is Cybercrime Junkies. And now the show. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow. In the studio is my always positive co-host and co-worker, Mark Mosher, like the Ohio State.
Thank you, David. How are you?
Doing well. Today we have a great talk. Josh Fulmer joins us, one of the leading cybersecurity recruiters with a fantastic firm. So Josh, welcome to the studio. We're really excited about having you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Really excited to be here.
Sorry, I just threw on a little background music. Really, really loud without any intro. So if that's too loud, you guys let me know. But let's kind of keep a little music in the background.
Sounds good.
So Josh, tell everybody kind of what you're currently doing, and then let's back into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I'm the lead cyber recruiter for a company called Dragos. So Dragos is a late stage startup. We've been around close to 7 years, and we deal with a very niche kind of aspect of cybersecurity, which is industrial control systems, or abbreviated ICS, or another term we use is operational technology. So basically all of the critical infrastructure that you and I rely on every single day, gas pipelines and electric and manufacturing, chemical, pharma, food and beverage, things like that. We specialize in protecting from cyber adversaries, and it's super cool work and absolutely love it. So we're a global company.
Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt, buddy.
Oh, you're fine.
So that's a sub niche of cybersecurity, right? Obviously a critical one. That's why we call it critical infrastructure. But explain to people kind of what that means. So the candidates, you guys help them. Are you employed by the organizations that are searching, or are you employed by the candidates themselves?
Yeah, so I'm a corporate recruiter, so employee of Dragos. Yeah, there's sort of, we absolutely use external recruiters if we need, especially globally as we're expanding into other countries. But yeah, I'm fully dedicated to recruiting for Dragos full time.
That's an interesting kind of take on it, the international piece. We talk with a lot of people in cybersecurity, obviously, but not a lot of them that are in that kind of job placement or job search do it on an international level. Or you go overseas to Europe or the Middle East, are the norms, the conditions, the compliance requirements and regulations, are they different? Does that come into play?
Absolutely, 100%. We have 2 team members within the human resources team that are fully dedicated to kind of the global employees. So right now we're, UK, Germany, Dubai, Saudi, Australia, New Zealand. So sort of all over the map, and every single country has its own, like you said, compliance, employment laws, there's different benefits and everything that each country and employees expect. But also the recruiting challenges are unique, I would say, for every region that we operate in.
So you said Dragos is a late stage startup. What's kind of the mission and the vision?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the mission is to safeguard civilization, and we're a super mission driven organization. It's always sort of cliche. As I came into this space, I thought, every company has this grandiose vision, and they tag themselves as these superheroes trying to save the world. But I came to Dragos and was very almost shocked at how passionate, not only the founders were, but all the employees about that mission. And the reason it's so important is if you look at the history of ICS security, how critical infrastructure has been, targeted and attacked, it can become a really bad day for the asset owners, the companies that are being breached and targeted, but for society, imagine, worst case scenario,
Oh
shut
yeah.
off a whole, electric power to a whole region, or, certain facilities can, you know, start a fire, or, explode, or we can really, adversaries are getting really good at affecting certain processes and systems. And, loss of life is involved in these situations. And so, and totally, we're never downplaying the risk of, enterprise cyber attacks to IT. Those are devastating, but in our world, it's non-negotiable. We have to protect this stuff because the potential outcomes can be, horrific.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking with Carlo Bredo, who has a Silicon Valley think tank, and he's got an institute, and they're actually working on an ISO for the U.S. government on critical infrastructure frameworks. Right, there isn't
Yeah,
anything. I mean, of course, there's great frameworks out there. There's a lot of them, but
yeah,
there needs to be some enforced by government
mhm,
on private sector to actually make them do something. Right. And we were asking them about what do they see as the weakest part of critical infrastructure.
mhm,
Trains, planes, automobiles,
yeah.
water, electric, and he was saying water was really one of the weakest. Is that what you guys are seeing in the candidates and the firms that you guys are working with? What are some of the weakest things, or the highest risk categories in critical infrastructure in the U.S. today?
It's a great question. I don't think I'm the most qualified to answer that, not being part of the
You're as
more of the
qualified as
technical
we
names,
are to
but
ask it.
yeah.
So,
So I would say,
we're all learning. We're
in
all
the
learning.
early days of Dragos, I believe it was two parts. We had a lot of expertise on the team in electric power and oil and gas.
Mm.
That was we hit that heavy and hard kind of in the early days to build out the company. But we work in, like I said before, so many different verticals. Water treatment being one of them. Transportation, pharma, food and beverage. But as far as the threat landscape, it's sort of all over the place. We're seeing activity in so many different industrial verticals. Yeah, I can't speak to, which ones are at the most risk. Certainly when you do, you know, a reverse engineering of a risk analysis, where,
Right.
where's the baddest day, or the worst outcome, where could that be? You think about, we just can't survive without some of these infrastructures and things. But it's really
Yeah.
interesting
Absolutely. So that's a
once you get
great
into that.
mission that Dragos is formed on. So they're really focused on the critical infrastructure support and finding resources. So do candidates that are searching for those qualified candidates that are searching for those positions reach out to Dragos, or do the companies reach out to Dragos to help them hire?
Yeah, it's a great question. Dragos is gaining a lot of momentum in the marketplace, a lot of branding. Since
Yeah,
I've been more active on LinkedIn, I think my profile has played a little bit of part in that.
absolutely.
Becoming a pretty target company for employees. But we get a mix. So when I go
Okay.
to market with a job posting, I can get, for some roles, hundreds of applicants that we kind of have to sift through and manage. Other ones, especially going back to kind of the global team of Dragos, you have to go chase down and hunt those candidates, and that's certainly the case for a lot of roles. Not Some of them are very specialized, and we have all sorts of roles, from software engineering to business to cybersecurity.
Oh, so it's
All
not all just the SOC or pen tester
Mhm,
or things like that.
exactly.
It's all of those.
Mhm,
Okay, so that's really interesting. So uh, so that's something that and we'll have links to Dragos and to you in the
Sure.
show notes. But for those that know people that are looking to get into or advance their career in cybersecurity, um, and other facets, to reach out to you guys, because I really like
Absolutely.
what you guys do, and I love how you talk about your organization's culture. Do you want to share a little bit about that? You guys really seem to have a very kind of meaningful, like
Yeah.
a meaning filled culture. I think it maybe has to do with your founding there. Really
Yeah.
talks about like we want to protect. I love the esoteric, like we want to save the
Yeah.
world. Like I love that
Yeah.
because like, well, okay,
Yeah.
who's going to be against that? Right. Like, and when you're going to get venture capital and
Mhm.
stuff, like, are
Yeah.
you opposed to saving the world? Oh yeah, I'm opposed. You're not getting my money. Like that's really good, man. Like I love that.
Yeah, so coming back to that, I think the mission is at the core of that. If you ask, Rob Lee, the CEO, and one of the founders of Dragos, why he started the company, he always says, I want my son to have running lights, clean water in the future. It's that
Hmm.
simple. And
Yeah.
that's sort of a powerful, people in other companies, and I'm not trying to say anything about this, but if you can boil down a mission or a purpose and make it mean something to the individual, hey,
Absolutely.
all of the stuff you rely on is under siege. There's a big threats against it. That kind of hits home. But outside
As
of that,
as opposed to some organizations I know that are like, our mission is growth. And I'm like,
yeah, and you're
what
like,
does
what does
that
that mean?
mean? Like growth for what? What are you just
Yeah.
throwing an arbitrary number out there and you want to
Yeah.
grow? Like why? Like what? It gets into the whole Simon Sinek aspect of it, right? You're like, are you just like, are you playing the short game or are you playing the
Yeah.
long game, right?
Yeah.
Because the short game always fails.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
so that's
So
great.
we,
So,
This brings it to
yeah.
light really a sector in cybersecurity. I think that the general public just doesn't really know about or is not completely aware of how big this is. And David, from our involvement with InfraGard, this hits to their core value and mission. For those not familiar, InfraGard is that joint coalition between the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the private sector to specifically protect, from a cybersecurity
yeah,
standpoint,
and it's
the
focused on critical
infrastructure of the United
infrastructure.
States.
Yeah,
Right.
and
But I think the general public, when they think of cybersecurity and in breaches and threat actors, that it's ransomware or somebody's going to hack my bank account or something. People
hmm
don't realize, no, the critical infrastructure is what really is the spine and backbone of our daily lives, and without that, we got big problems. So I'm really glad that you guys are focused on this. I think more people need to understand this, and I think hopefully this episode will bring some of this to life for some people that just maybe weren't aware of how critical this is to our daily lives. Really.
So
Yeah.
let me shift gears here real quick. So
Sure.
Josh, you're very active on social media, and in a meaningful way. Like it's pretty impactful. You talk about some really good things. You're not just like, hey, we got a big deal. Let's look
Yeah.
at us. It's always like, because I think that's where social media, it can give you an audience, and where the impact of it is, if you have a helpful motive, right, and you're there to help people and not to lecture them or not to brag, but we're just, it's like the playground in school. If you're there to
Yeah.
help
Okay.
people, people are going to like you and they're going to want to follow you, right? It's
Hmm.
not that complicated.
Yeah.
um you and I really like your it's why I reached out to you originally. Like your content is always helpful to people searching for jobs, employers of businesses, owners of businesses looking for good talent. Like, and you always have some really excellent quality posts and statistics
Appreciate
and
that.
research and stuff. So tell us about what you guys are seeing in the market. Like, what is there a specialty within cybersecurity that is doing better? Is there a specialty within ICS that's doing better? Like for those looking for a job or for those looking to hire people, like what tell us what you guys are seeing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the ICS security market is again very unique. Um, and there's so many, I think there's traditional enterprise kind of IT cyber roles that get applied to just the industrial space. So we sort of hire, um, and this is just Josh's roles, right? Because I'm sort of the cyber person here, cyber recruiter. You can take a industrial engineer type person. Maybe they grew up working in a plant, or maybe they were engineering some of these pipelines or electric grids or what have you, but they understand the industrial process, the systems, the devices, they understand how that all works. And then they come in here and then they get the cyber piece added on top of that. So we'll
Right.
train them on, how to do a compromise assessment, how to do a pen test, all of that, the threat intelligence aspect. And those people are amazing to have on the team because they can go to a water treatment facility and say, yep, that's exactly how you would shut this down. Here's how
Right.
this process works. And from an adversary perspective, that's what adversaries have to do to be successful
Yeah.
in this space. Is they have to say, all that research, if we turn this off and hit this valve and affect this, there's a kill chain there, right? But then we'll also take just your average IT cyber person, security analyst, SOC analyst, pen tester, um, reverse engineer, and they have all of that, the tools and the cyber foundation. And then we'll say, here's the information on industrial, and we'll train them up through courses and shadowing and mentoring and help them understand how industrial processes work. So
So to kind
we
of
we
blend the two, right? Blend either
yeah,
the
exactly.
cybersecurity knowledge that they have, the certifications, the home labs, the courses that they've taken, all that,
Yeah,
and then you'll train them on the ICS
yeah,
pieces, right?
exactly. Mhm.
Really interesting. So, and that's what you guys are seeing a lot of. I mean, I guess that's a loaded question because you guys have already niched down, right? Like
Yeah.
you guys are focused on that industry. So that's
Mhm.
really what you're going to see the most of because that's what you're going
And
after.
I think, yeah, and so at times I'll have the task, "Hey, Josh, we really need kind of both skill sets mixed together," which is an even harder position to fill. It's like, "Oh, man, you need someone who's the cyber person and the industrial person." They do exist, there's, we have other competitors out there that do the same type of work, especially in the vendor space. We have, there's other firms and other, Big Four shops that are doing ICS, OT, consulting, or other work in that area. Also, military. These are great people to recruit because all those cyber missions a lot of times have an industrial security aspect. I hire people all the time out of there, and they're highly trained through like SANS and GIAC and other areas. And some of their cyber missions were industrial focused. So I love my DoD and military brothers and sisters that have that mission spirit and have some of that training. But as far as broadly, yeah, it's still an emerging market. To Mark's point, Dragos is sort of leading the pack. We're the world's thought leader on this. And thanks to Rob Lee and his presence out there, he's very active. He's an incredible CEO. We're starting to drive more interest and awareness to, because people don't really realize this stuff is under attack. It's such a,
Right.
you turn on the nightly news and it's a ransomware attack, and it's cybersecurity on the IT side of stuff. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
part of the
our
problem.
mhm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
Nope,
ahead.
totally good. Go ahead.
No, I mean, part of the problem is the media simplifies things too much, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
these guys were breached. Oh, and these guys were
yeah,
breached." And I'm like, "A breach is not a breach is not a breach. Like one is
yeah.
something completely different. One
Mhm.
means this. One means the data was extracted and is for sale on the dark web. One just means they got access to nothing really important, but it's
Yeah,
making news. Something else is like really devastating, but it gets the same treatment as the one that wasn't that important." I'm like, they don't get it.
yeah,
And so I think that's where the security research is so important. Would you agree? Like it's so important when people actually research the details and then share this
yeah.
one's really bad because of this.
Mhm.
This one, okay, a little sloppy,
Yeah,
right? They didn't set the right priorities, but they're changing, right?
yeah. Or
Um,
the one I love is, when the news says, sophisticated adversary,
I know.
sophisticated attack, and then
It was a
our
sophisticated attack. Yeah, it's
our
always a sophisticated.
analysts are like, they made a lot of mistakes on that code. It's not that sophisticated, you know.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
it's not that sophisticated to like get somebody to password spray,
yeah, mhm,
the Cleveland Browns won
yeah,
and get in, right? And then you have it configured inside so the one person who's in, accounts receivable has access to like all of the intellectual property of the organization. It's like once they got in, they were able to go all
yeah,
over the place, which shouldn't have been structured that way in the first place. So it's like it wasn't that sophisticated. It was just pretty sloppy.
yep,
So
exactly.
you did mention something, and as Mark mentioned, our involvement with InfoGuard. So I wanted to ask you about this.
Sure.
Do you get a lot of people transitioning from military? Because to me, it's not only a transferable skill set that you learn in the military, depending on your role, obviously, but it's really applicable to cybersecurity roles. But in particular, there's a drive and the same meaning behind it, right? They want to save the
Hmm.
world.
Yep.
They have this belief at their core
Hmm.
to serve and protect. I mean,
Yep.
are you guys getting a lot of candidates that are transitioning from military or at least have military background in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, going back to Rob Lee, he's former Air Force, former NSA. So that just drives a whole bunch of community towards us. But we do participate in actual placement programs with the military, Skill Bridge being one of them. So Skill Bridge allows someone who's really close to terminal leave or their transition date, and they can do sort of like a professional internship while still active duty. So the company doesn't pay them. They're just sort of on loan to us from whatever military branch assigned them. Then they get like, 3 to 6 months of professional experience in the private marketplace. And then many times when that internship is finished, they've signed their papers to leave the military, we can hire them, or they've got a great network to start with. So I
That,
love programs like that. It makes it
yeah.
so easy.
So I'm sorry, and what was that called again? That's the first I've heard of it. I think that's a great
Absolutely.
service.
Yeah, it's called Skill Bridge. Another one I've worked with in the past is hiring our heroes. So it's pretty simple. I mean, if you want to participate, it's an
Skill Bridge is
an
Skill Bridge is
application
well
on the part of
known.
the
Yeah, it's
company.
good.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
phenomenal.
It's a
So
great one.
and what's your involvement with SkillBridge? Like what's Drago's involvement? Do you
Hmm.
refer candidates there if they don't know about it yet, or are you getting candidates from
Hmm.
that place, or both? I was just curious.
So it comes through two channels. So a hiring manager that has a hiring need and an interest in hiring a veteran, they might just start right off the bat. Hey, Josh, we'd like someone from SkillBridge. We've got a headcount open, but let's bring someone on and train them through that internship process, and then we can officially place them when they're out of the military. Or we just get military guys and gals coming to us, and maybe they have a skill set that's an immediate match or of interest to us. Then we'll just sort of buzz their name around the company or different teams. If someone's interested in bringing them on, it's really simple. We've done the paperwork on the part of the candidate. There's a couple of forms to sign, and we have to go through a little bit of a process. But yeah, we'll kind of do both in terms of that.
Excellent, excellent. So, share with us kind of a person that is trying to advance their career within the cybersecurity field. What do you see the successful ones doing? The ones that reduce the amount of time they're out of work, or
Mhm.
that get get picked off, right?
Yeah.
Well, even if they have a job, they might not even necessarily be looking, but recruiters kind of find them because of how good they're doing. What is it that they're doing? Are they self-branding on social media? Are they
Mhm.
presenting at conferences? What is it
Mhm.
that they're what is it that separates those that have a smoother transition than
Mhm.
others?
Yeah. So if you've got work experience, over 2 to 3 years, I think it becomes, I'm not going to use the word easy, but it becomes infinitely easier to transition because you've built over the past couple years, sort of from associate junior level to mid-level type of person or senior. You've got background in that, hands-on work experience, and a network of people. So usually when I'm hunting a candidate down, it's usually for a higher level role. Like I'm not going to do
Right.
much sourcing or headhunting for like a junior person or like an intern, of course. But yeah, to your point, the folks that I see at that higher level that have the most opportunity, they have skills that are in demand, but they also have a network. And that's what I love about cybersecurity. That's why I kind of came into this industry, why I want to stay. Is there's little pockets of communities. There's all these conferences that people attend.
Oh yeah,
There's groups, and it's
RSA.
all kind
Yeah,
of yeah, it's
RSA,
all
Write a Boom,
Right.
yeah,
ZEF Con, Black
Hillbilly
Hat,
Hacker Fest.
B-sides. Yeah, the
so
Wild West
many.
Hacker Fest,
Yep.
B-sides. Like, there's so much knowledge and networking that,
Hmm.
and and what's interesting is, and let's be transparent here, right? Those that are in technology in general, right, tend to not be the outgoing extroverted type in general, right? They
Yeah.
tend to be more clinical, more
Hmm.
binary in thinking, and so being social isn't necessarily the first thing that they do.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they would have been in sales, probably, right,
Yep.
as opposed to in technology. So, but even so, it's so important, isn't it? And
Hmm.
so, one of the ways to do it, even if you don't like public speaking or
Yeah.
networking or going to events, is leveraging social media and the connections you can make there, because
Yep.
there are, the LinkedIn community in cybersecurity is
Hmm.
outstanding. I've been in several industries throughout my career, and I've never seen anything like it. Like,
Hmm.
there's a whole handful of people and they're like, hey, I'm going to be in town, who's going to be in this area over this weekend or whatever, and like 15 people jump in and then they go meet live and they're
Yeah.
networking, and I'm like, it's all from like a
Yep.
freaking LinkedIn post. It's
Yeah. It's
really
crazy.
cool. It's
Yep.
really cool. There's great, from a business perspective, that's great networking. That's
Hmm.
that's a phenomenal thing.
Absolutely. I just recently came into contact with a really sharp kind of intel research type person out of Germany. We had some initial conversations, and over time, you just become friends with these folks. And that kind of opens up, every person you meet opens up a whole new door. So, not to, and again, back to your point, these cyber folks typically, um, introverted. Many of them aren't. Some of the best folks in this industry, some of the smartest people aren't even on social media. They're just really good at what they do. And there's the other, you talk about other platforms, um, Twitter, Mastodon,
Yep.
InfoSec Exchange. There's other sort of pockets that are less, um, visible than LinkedIn, or Twitter's a big one. But
Yeah.
some people
Twitter
aren't even
is,
on
yeah.
there, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it is a huge leverage point.
It
Absolutely.
is. Mastodon is one of those kind of quiet ones that tends to be
Yeah.
growing, right? I
Yep.
mean, you don't get the visibility. Most
Mhm.
people don't get the visibility, but the resources that are there and some of the research that's posted and some of the trends, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Um, how are you seeing the job market in general currently? Has it been? I mean, there's news all over the place about tech layoffs.
Yeah.
How has cybersecurity or cybersecurity niche of ICS, how's that been impacted, if at all?
Yeah, so far so good with Dragos. We're not going to ignore, a looming recession or the signs of that, or, the economic climate. But if you look at, again, sort of the bigger picture or what we do, we're supporting a customer base that is typically very stable.
Hmm.
Huge electric companies, huge gas companies, huge, large supply chains that are very important, that keep churning and going. So, of course, I think this climate can affect everybody. Dragos is still hiring. We're still doing very
That's
well
great.
and pushing through it. So, but sad to see, on that other point, a lot of other in the technology sector, but only also in cybersecurity, a lot of companies reducing to
Well, I
and
think it's
prepare for this.
dangerous.
Yeah.
I think it's dangerous by doing that, right? There are a lot of ways when you look at those Excel spreadsheets, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to cut, right? And cutting cybersecurity is
Yeah.
really dangerous because when you're looking at resources, that is protecting the brand that you've built, right? You spend a decade in sales and marketing and venture capital, et cetera, right? Public, private, doesn't matter. It's all building and building it up. And then you know, jeopardize all of that from a reputation damaging data breach, right? And um, uh, again, not every breach is the same. So
Yep.
some people are like, well, we had a little breach a couple years ago. It was nothing. And I'm like, yeah, but they didn't go to DEF CON 10. They didn't go
Yeah.
to level 10 on that breach. The next
Yep.
one could be.
Yep.
And once they know that you've got in a little, your name is out there as a target.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you
that
this, Josh, when it comes
Sure.
to certs, because this is a question David and I get all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, sure.
Do you look at when you're out there hunting, do you look at maybe certain certs as a differentiator in candidates, or is that something you just consider like a foundational knowledge piece that they have to have? Does that
Yeah.
weigh into the equation at all?
Dragos has a really unique position on this. As a company policy, we don't require degrees or certifications. I think we look at skills
Interesting.
first. And
Did
that's,
did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? So
one of
reach out to
few.
Josh. So
It is
that's
an
great.
important
And
factor.
yeah, and
So
if you
having said that, most of our people highly educated. They have all those certs and degree types, of course. But really, I think that has really helped us because ultimately, education's great. I'm not saying it's not. It's very important. But there is absolutely a gap between on paper what you know, what you've studied, and what you can do. And that's the focus of my interview style. Is let's talk about what you can do, what you have done, evidence of the work that we do here. And I think that has really been a big game changer culturally for the company.
That's a unique outlook. I really like that, though.
But in general, yeah, certs are a hot topic, I will say, and the newcomers get sucked into this, you know, hamster wheel of what boot
Yep. Look,
camp
look
and
at
what
what certs I
certification
got. Look at this
body
one I
and
I
all of
passed
that.
with a 97. Look what I got.
So
Okay.
what my advice is, and I'm not an educator, I'm not a technical practitioner, but I sort of have a logical approach to the certification game. And it's this. It's ask yourself just a few questions. If you can answer yes to these, I think you're on the right track. Is the certification going to help me learn what I need to know for the job I want? Because don't just get education to get education. I think that's silly.
right.
You can spend a lot of money. Look, I've got a 4-year degree. I went into debt for. Luckily, that's behind me.
Yep.
But that knowledge really isn't serving me today. I wish it would have better. So is it going to teach me what I need to know? Is the certification in demand for the job I want? Is it on job postings, or do people actually have it out there that are doing the job I want? Um,
And
do
sometimes
I know anybody that has it? Do they have any feedback? And then am I
right.
okay with the cost, time, commitment aspect? If some of those things I try to keep in mind.
Right. And
That's
then
good
there's other
advice.
ways to demonstrate it, right?
Yeah.
If you are looking in the penetration testing world,
Mhm.
right? There are ways to demonstrate through home labs or things like that. Even if you're looking
Yeah.
in the blue team world, there are different ways to set it up in a home lab to demonstrate that you understand it, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I saw some research very recently about the uh, knowledge and understanding of some of the key frameworks is even more in demand than certs
Mhm.
necessarily, right? Like if you're going into a particular field and ISO is really important or
Mhm.
HIPAA is really important, right?
Yeah.
Then really having a practical
Mhm.
understanding of what those regulations mean
Mhm.
in your job role is really important. And a lot of that can be found online or at
Yep.
little to no cost,
Mhm.
right? So
Exactly.
being able to understand it and speak to it in an interview is really what matters, not
Yeah.
whether you went to a school and studied it 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like
And there's so many boot camps and certification companies and degrees out there that are popping up. It's just this melting pot now. And what's funny is people ask, well, which one do you look for? Which ones should I go get? But honestly, if you even have a hiring manager sit down and look through a resume, they might not even recognize. There's very common industry-wide ones, but a lot of the other stuff might not make a lot of sense to like a recruiter or a hiring manager. It's just, hey, it looks like you took this class or went through this course. That's great. What'd you learn? Type of thing. And so, yeah, definitely get a foundation, focus on what's in demand. What do employers want? What are people in your space kind of going after? But I think we can fall into the temptation just to stack up. If I just stack up all these creds, I'm going to get noticed. That's not true. I think it can be a red flag even for someone entry level. It's like, you don't have any work experience, but you've got a CISSP. Like, what the heck? That seems a little off. But just balance in all things, I think, is a good approach.
What's your view on boot camps?
Got to be careful here because I think they're fine as a kind of as a principle or a concept. It's great. I've never been to one, but I think I think a lot of these boot camp companies, I wouldn't say are taking advantage, but they just saw an opportunity, and they're raising costs every year. It's just like university. It's like, before you know it, it's going to be 20 grand to go through a, 8-week boot camp or whatever. I think they're a really good starting point if you can't afford to go to a 4-year college degree, if you're pursuing formal education. But again, I think people should be more, they kind of get sucked into being sold on these things. And they see an ad on LinkedIn or on Facebook and they say, yeah, I need a boot camp. I need it.
Yeah.
Let's go to this one. It's like, do a little more research, look into them. Don't rush. I think they're fine. I think they can be a really good starting point, but I think there's just a lot of them popping up and it's sort of become a game.
Is there something that a candidate should look at in a boot camp that could help them select one versus another?
Yeah, specifically, I'd look at two things. Are people that went to that boot camp getting placed in the job market? And that's actually a fairly easy search on LinkedIn. You put in the job title, and then you can go to filters. And if the boot camp exists on there, type it in, it'll pop up. So I think that's one indicator. And then just look at their curriculum. If they've got a brochure or some sort of paperwork on what they teach, who are the instructors? Do they have a good reputation? If some of those things are not lining up, I'd probably avoid it.
That's excellent advice. Those two pieces are fantastic.
I feel the same way, Josh. It's like a lot of these boot camps just in the last 2 years have just it's like they pop up on every corner, and then one's more expensive than the next, and then this one goes up in price a shorter period, but it's more expensive. And I think you're right. You got to really look at, does the outcome that the boot camp produces drive or enhance your ability or your chance to either advance your career or get the job that you're looking for?
Yep.
Yeah, I would.
You could go to boot camp.
I would even take that second step. You just gave two great examples. I would suggest even taking the second step a little bit further. Not only find the alumni from that boot camp, but connect with them and reach out and say, "Hey, I'm interested."
Exactly.
People want to help. People want to help. First of all, it's flattering to them. You're asking them to kind of be a mentor, and they're working every day. They're like, "Does this even matter?" And then all of a sudden, somebody younger in their career, maybe not younger in age, but younger in their career, right, is reaching out and saying, "Hey, I saw that you went to this boot camp and you're having success. What is your thought of this boot camp?" And they might say, "You know what? I don't think that one was worth it. I really wish I would have gone to this one because I know a buddy who went there and this happened and this happened really well compared to my experience." It just saved you 8 weeks and 15 grand, right, of going to the wrong one. And maybe this other one, maybe it's even more, right? But you're going in the right direction for yourself. So reach out and connect to these people. Like, they will, when you ask somebody for help, they want to help. So that's excellent. So what's on the horizon for you? So as
That's a great
we kind
question.
of wrap up here, kind of what
Yeah.
is on the horizon for you, and then what's on the horizon for Dragos?
Yeah, so, last April, I sort of committed to LinkedIn content. It just started as, Dragos is this super niche company. In some pockets of the world and the community, we were well known, but for the most part, we were very well unknown. So I thought initially, hey, if I can see all this content getting thrown out there and lots of likes and clicks and comments and community, maybe if I jump in, I can sort of create some sort of awareness for the company. That was the intention at the start. And now it is snowballed and evolved to so much more. Now I've got this thing called a personal brand, a following, a community. I'm helping job seekers. So definitely want to continue on and sort of evolve what I do for that market, for the job seekers. I
Absolutely.
just started a blog 6 weeks ago, gonna kind of keep driving other content forward, and definitely see myself long term with this company. I love the culture, the people I work with. I think it's going to be very exciting as the
Love to hear
company
that.
continues to push forward into new markets. And we're 7 years old. We know what we're doing by now. It's a very
Mhm.
established company, but we're still in that startup mode where we're developing and maturing and improving product lines and what we do. And we're going into markets where Dragos, again, we don't have any customers, and that's very exciting to me. We launched
Yeah,
a team.
the new frontier. I've done that in my career, and I think it's really exciting when you're like,
Yeah,
so what's our market share in that market? 0. Like,
yeah.
love it. Like, let's
Let's go.
go. Let's hop on the horses,
Yeah,
circle the wagons and let's go. Like, it's really fun because in some ways it's interesting because you're like cool and new, and then you get to say like, here, give us a shot, right? Like,
yeah,
let us do this, let us help these people, let us help you, and it's really exciting. So
absolutely.
that's great, man. Well, we wish you the best. We will have links to your blog as well in the show notes.
Great.
So, and we encourage everybody to follow and watch for Josh's content on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Great stuff. You're really there with the right mission, with the right intent. You're there to help, and that's
Yeah.
what's so impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's much
No,
That was
appreciated.
good stuff. That was really good.
absolutely. So thanks everybody for joining. We will talk again soon, Josh. This was absolutely not the last time we talked, buddy.
Yep, absolutely.
Take care, bud.
Thanks. Okay, we'll see you, buddy.
See you guys soon.
Hey, well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening. Our next episode starts right now.
Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, and download the podcast episodes available everywhere you get podcasts.
To support our show and get exclusive pre-release episodes and bonus content, please subscribe to Cybercrime Junkies Prime.
Link in the description and show notes. And thanks for being a cybercrime junkie.